So I think if you are a musician right now, try to focus on storytelling through visuals. And that doesn't, it doesn't have to take away all of your time from music.
Welcome to Audius's Behind the Beats, episode 16. In each episode, we'll be talking to musicians and DJs from all walks of life about their experiences in the music industry. From up-and-coming artists to established industry veterans, we'll be exploring the diverse and fascinating stories of the people behind the music. On today's episode, we're joined by the incredible music producer and artist, Demotapes. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired by Behind the Beats. Let's go. What's up, Demotapes, aka Parker? How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining Behind the Beats.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, we just love your music, and there's so much to get into for the show, so it's very exciting. But before we do that, I'm thinking we can kick this show off with what we call a rapid fire round of questions. So are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. Streaming or vinyl?
Let's go streaming. I mean, you can have everything in your pocket. So yeah, let's go streaming.
Cool. PS5 or Xbox?
Not much of a gamer, but when I did game, I was an Xbox person.
Cool. Acoustic or electronic music?
Electronic music all day.
Obviously. Nature or the studio?
Another really close one. Studio is my favorite place in the world, so it's got to be studio.
Love it. Marathon running or sprint running?
These days, more marathon, I would say. I don't know. That might be like a philosophical question, but yeah, I guess you go with,
I thought you might
marathon.
interpret it like that. Yes. Finally, clubs or festivals?
I love festivals. Some of my best musical experiences have been in festivals. I'm a sleepy guy, so I'm not much of a club person, but yeah, I definitely love festivals.
Love it. Well, those are all the questions, and so thank you for participating in that. I just think it's a fun way to start the show and get a feel, get a temperature check. But now let's get into it. So I love the name Demotapes. I mean, that's a good place to start. How did you come up with the name?
So my first project, like when I started listening to music when I was a really little kid, it was a cassette tape player was the first thing that I had. And so the first project that I ever started with my friend Jackson was a duo called Cassette Tapes. And so I had when we were working on that project, I had a ton of music that I was making that was starting to sound like a solo project. And I was like, well, it just kind of fit. I know it's it's a little bit on the nose, but I really love the ethos of just a demo is just something that's unfinished that you're working on. And I wanted this project to be more of a real and raw reflection of who I am and what I'm making. You know what I mean? And have something that was a little bit less of a polished, finished product that I'm presenting to people and more hey, this is my creative journey. So it was that was kind of the idea of of demo has a weird almost a negative connotation in the music industry because it's oh, it's unfinished or whatever. But I don't know. Yeah, I just like that name and that ethos for a project kind of.
That's really cool and original. I've never heard anything like that, and it really speaks to kind of your ethos as well as an artist, which we'll get into later. That sense of play, with sound design and creativity, and that sense of limitless creating. So, how did you first get into music in terms of production? Where did you start?
When I was a kid, when I was in grade school, I played clarinet and was in concert bands. So that was kind of my upbringing in music, and then was always a really big music fan, but really late into starting producing. I didn't get Ableton until I was a freshman in college, so 18 years old. My friend Davis, shout out to Davis, was producing music, and yeah, and just kind of showed me the ropes, and I downloaded Ableton, and yeah, it took me a really long time to kind of arrive at like doing it or seeing it as like a career. It sort of started a lot later and started out just kind of like as a hobby for me.
That's really cool and inspiring. And I think, the Ableton program, it's so intuitive, right? And I see your posts on social media sharing like behind the scenes, under the hood with how you make tracks and sound design, which we'll talk about later. But you recently dropped a song called Anywhere But Here, which is awesome. I would love to hear like the story, anything cool you can share, your inspiration behind that song.
Yeah. So I am a sample maker. So I have a sample pack company, and I also put sample packs out through Splice, and I spend a lot of my time just like making ideas that are not necessary that I kind of know are not going to be finished tracks, right? And so with Anywhere But Here in the last couple of releases for me, it's been like I'm going to set out to make like a sample, like something that I'm like, all right, I'm not going to necessarily treat this as a fully finished idea. I'm just going to make like a 4 or an 8 bar loop, and then I'm going to take that and sort of like flip it into something new. So I had this like idea that I was sitting on that was just like the main kind of like sample chop in Anywhere But Here, which like felt really like nostalgic and like emotional. And a friend of mine, Carter, who's more of like a singer songwriter, makes like indie pop sounding music, had sent me a demo that he was working on that was called Everything's Changed. And it was like this like just kind of a beautiful telling or his perspective on like what it's like getting older, right? And like relationships changing, friendships changing, just like the feeling that you get in your kind of like mid to late 20s as like you start to settle into like adulthood and like, your routines become different, all that stuff. Um and so he sent me this song that he was working on, just to like ask for feedback, and I was like, this is perfect. Like, this is the most beautiful song ever. And I asked Carter if I could take a few snippets of that vocal, to use them to kind of like tell a little bit more of like a vocal story around this instrumental track that I had. So like the core of it is this kind of like emotional instrumental, and then it was just sort of like the way that you find and collect samples, and it sort of fits together like puzzle pieces. You're like, oh, this thing goes here, this thing goes here, and sometimes,
Yeah.
most of the time, everything doesn't come together, and sometimes it does. And so with this one, it was kind of this story of like change in kind of like a little bit of a sad way, but like with hope there as well, of like I'm going into
Mm.
like a new place, and we don't really know what the next chapter of life holds. Kind of that sort of feeling is like what I was trying to capture with it. And Carter's
Yeah.
vocal was just like perfect for that that feeling.
It's amazing what electronic music can achieve. It's got, as you were saying, all these emotions imbued in the track, and I kind of felt that as I was listening to it. It's like multi-dimensional, like you're moving with the song. Did it take long to make, or was it one of those really quick songs?
No, that process that I just described was like
Mm.
over the course of 7 or 8 months,
Cool. Yeah.
from coming up with the initial idea, kind of like abandoning it because I was like, this is a cool, I basically had the sample chop idea, but no like vocal or anything else to kind of like flesh it out and tell the story. So yeah, some songs are like a couple days of like a process, and some of them are months. And this one was definitely on the longer side because I had to like just like take the time and be looking around enough, I guess, to find the different pieces to fit together for the song.
Wow, it's funny how creativity works. There's no
Yeah.
necessarily right or wrong or black or white for how things come together, but somehow the universe speaks to you and flows through you in different ways. It might be a song in a day, or as you said, over 7 months. But it's really cool though seeing your process. You're quite active on social media, and you post breakdowns of your track as well as like really cool sound design, granular things as well. Do you find your fans and community engage with this sort of content just as much as, let's say, the product of the song?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're all spending a ton of time looking at our phones every day and scrolling social media. And so that is sort of that's the first place that you see music now, which is crazy, right? You don't like open like apps necessarily to like stream the music right away. You go and find music on social media and then you go and stream it like elsewhere. So with that in mind, I'm trying to like be more mindful of treating content like video stuff that I make as like an extension of like my creative process, right? Like this is
Yeah.
the thing that people are going to see that's going to represent my music. So what
Yeah.
does my music feel like? What does it look like? What does it feel like to create the music that I'm creating? And I'm trying to like find ways to do that kind of like storytelling. And it's like it's funny because the journey of like learning to make music and being good at making music took me over a decade, and
Mhm.
with presenting like visuals for that music and figuring out how to storytell around that music like on social media is also like a creative like process and journey, you know. You're trying stuff out, like some things work, some things don't, like that's also taken me. I've been posting a lot on social media for the last couple of years, and it's taken me a long time to sort of like feel like I'm starting to arrive at like what feels like again like an extension of my art. So
I love that phrase, extension of your art. It is a very much an immersive kind of 360 experience beyond even the song itself. It's getting to know you person, as an artist, the storytelling, the why behind the song, the process, the how. So it's all integrated and really cool to see what you're doing. Speaking of storytelling, that in sound design itself, that's a way of communicating stories through pure sound. And I know you create sample packs and love sound design. So what's your journey been like for that, as well as creating all those sound packs?
so there's kind of two different like approaches to making music from what I've seen. There are people that sit and think and spend a lot of time with their thoughts and then go execute that idea. They will conceptualize and then go execute that idea. And then there's kind of more um, like experiential producers where it's like I just have to make a ton of stuff to figure out what I want to make. You know what I mean? I need to make like bad stuff. I need to like follow creative dead ends. It's like that with I think a lot of like types of creativity. Like it's like that with writing, and it's like that with a lot of like creative pursuits. And so I'm in the second camp. I have to make a lot of stuff to find what I like and what I want to release and what makes sense for my project. And so when I started the demo tapes project, which was in 2020, I was writing like 300 like things a year, like not songs, but like, you know, ideas, like chord progressions, drum loops, like little snippets or seeds that like could turn into ideas. And I realized that like some of them were really awesome. Like I really loved a lot of those seeds of ideas, but they didn't like make sense for me to release. And so I decided, why don't I create a sample pack series out of these ideas? And that's like the concept behind Soundbox is like take these ideas that I really love, but I can't figure out, like I can't find the way to fit the pieces together to make it a full song and give it to other people to use. And so that journey has become like really fun and rewarding in its own way, because you're like that's now part of my creative output is just putting out sample packs and then watching other people go take them and like use them and like make finished songs with them. And like that's so rewarding in and of itself, because it's like all these ideas that would have just sat on my hard drive forever are now out in the world, getting worked on, getting finished, helping other people. You know, I use samples as well in my production, so helping other
Mm.
people like finish their songs is a really rewarding, cool experience.
Yeah, it's an amazing way to build community, as you're saying, is that you get that feedback loop. It's rewarding for everyone and that co-creation aspect, but you're also kind of like sharing your sound to the world and people are participating in the demo tapes essence, if you would have it like that. So let's talk about Audius because it kind of segues well because Audius loves to share, sounds and songs that might not, go on traditional streaming services, but unreleased gems and stems and all of those sorts of things. So how did you discover Audius?
As I mentioned, I'm like living in San Francisco, so there was like an Audius meetup. This is in like 2017 or 2018, like a couple of years ago, a lot of years ago now. And so Audius hosted a thing at their office and for artists basically to say like, hey, come on by. And it was really cool. It's cool to meet like what was the first version of the like Audius team at that point. And then I think also like the buzz around Audius in those years was and still is like this really exciting new place to put music. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
how I found out about them originally, is just like being in the Bay Area, I think.
That's amazing. So on Audius, there's a song you did with the Bitbird family. Shout out Bitbird. I love Bitbird.
Yeah.
Called Closer Than This. It's such a vibe. And we love playing it here at Audius. It's got this beautiful combination of smooth vocals and these pulsating beats. So what was your process hooking up with the Bitbird family and putting together that tune?
Yeah, so Bitbird does something every year called Create Together, which is like a month where they have an open submission. Artists submit songs, and then at the end of the month, they put together a compilation album, which is like the best. Like it's the coolest idea. So when I started the demo tips project, this is like basically a year into the project. I was making a ton of music. This is still during like COVID lockdown. And so I was like, yeah, that sounds like an awesome idea. Like, I'll make a song. And that was such a fun creative challenge, too, to be like time boxed like that, of like beginning of the month, come in, like it has to be turned in and like finished by the end. Um, and so yeah, the closer than this, like the feeling of that song was like very much like that, like kind of lockdown, like very isolated, like what the hell is going on kind of like feeling to it. And I tried to capture that in like the vocals and like the textural stuff that I'm doing in that song. But that was like really also really cool moment for me because it was like really early on in the demo tapes project. So getting to do like a release on one of my favorite labels, and like Son is the greatest, and like everyone, the Bitbird team is the best. So yeah, that was a really special like way to kind of like kick off and like start the project when I was starting out.
Yeah, wow, amazing. So yeah, you come like so far, like you put out so many tunes, like there's just so much to cover. But rumor has it that you got some unreleased gems that you might be able to share with us here at Audius today. In fact, maybe it has something to do with Rio Cragen for one of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there anything you'd be willing to like share about the tune, or could we even play it? That would be amazing.
Yes, of course we can play it. Yeah, so that song with Rio, I was in Los Angeles about a month ago, and Helix, who's the label that I'm working with, set up like a week for me to just come in and like work with different like artists and writers. And Rio's someone who I've been like the biggest fan of forever. Obviously, he's the best, and but had never worked with. Like we had known each other and been friends for like a couple of years now, and had never worked together. And so I had this like snippet seed of an idea, kind of like a sample. The title of it was like Wishing Well. So it was just this like cute, like fun, like kind of upbeat feeling. And Rio is like, you plug the mic in and just let him go, and he's will just give you like 12 of the best ideas you've ever heard. Just like perfect. Like he's insane, like a melody like machine, like on the level of like any of the
Yeah,
best, like so good.
yeah.
And
Shout out
so
Rio Cragen.
yeah, he's the best. So yeah, that idea was basically like a 1 day demo from Rio and I really love it. I want to do something with it and finish it. But it was kind of like a sad boy like love song. The sentiment of that song is like, you are going to just completely go broke and ruin your life because you love someone so much. Like
Oh my
it's like
god.
kind of like a cute idea for like the topic of that song. So I love it.
Oh wow, I'm so excited to play it. So if you're cool with that, let's play it here on Behind the Beats.
Yeah, let's do it.
I spent my last time on a mission now. I just risked my life, but she's fresh as hell. But she wishing for my bank account, so wishing well. Cause I spent my last time on a mission now.
Wow, like oh my goodness, we feel honored that you just played this tune with us here with Rio Krogan and yourself. Oh my god.
Yeah, I love that one. Thank you.
And do you know when it will be released or?
Not sure yet. I'm still that's like an early version of it, so I'm still trying to get it finished up. But yeah, I love it.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's super fire. We really feel honored that you're sharing this alpha with us. So
Of
yeah,
course.
can't wait to see that one released into the wild. But anyway, to continue on with the show, and let's talk about some other songs that are released. You know, you put out so many, like for instance, with labels such as Are We Okay? That has like over 3,500,000 streams on Spotify. You know, with Good Records. So, in your opinion, what's like the best thing about releasing with independent labels?
I mean, independent labels are great because they bring like an established fan base and usually like a palette of sounds and listeners to your project, right? So like Bitbird has a sound and artists and like a fan base and a Discord community that like loves them. Are We Okay? Which came out with Disco Lines. Thaddeus came out through his label, which is Good Records. Shout out to Good Records. And so he has like this just amazing community and like group of fans that love him and love his music and love what he does. And so that release was really fun because it was just like organic, sending files back and forth, working on a bunch of stuff. And the timing of that song came out last summer, right before Disco Lines went on like this huge festival run and like was playing. Like I got to see that song performed by him like at Lala on like one of their biggest stages, like for the first time, and like seeing the videos of that and um it's been really cool. And so yeah, indie labels are the best. Good Records is awesome. Dad's label, and yeah, super cool experience releasing with them.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's something really magical about seeing your tunes being played live, as you mentioned. Like whether
Yeah,
it's you playing your shows or like the artist playing it and seeing that reaction, even if it's on social media, like it must be so rewarding, like to see that.
yeah, it's the best. And Disco Lines and I have a few songs together, and he's obviously like playing so many shows and doing so much touring, and it's just like so special to have these like songs that we worked on together. Again, a lot of times not even in person, just like sending files back and forth, but like
Yeah.
seeing the like real reaction of people going out, like him going out and playing these shows and seeing people go crazy to these songs is like the best feeling ever. So yeah, shout out to
Speaking of
Disco Lines.
performances, I saw on social media that you were recently, was it performing at Temple Nightclub in San Francisco, supporting
Yeah,
NOTD? That's
yeah,
dope, man. Tell us about that show. How did it go?
that was super fun. I did a remix for Noted and am friends with them now for a couple years, and they're just the nicest guys ever. And so yeah, they asked me to support them at the San Francisco show, which was super fun. They also have like they're one of those artists that you see and you're like, oh, they have so many hits. So like, oh, they have this song, they have this song, they have this. Like, they have like a ton
Wow.
of massive songs, and their fan base is just super awesome. So yeah, it was fun. It was fun opening up for them, getting to play out the remix that I did for them, and yeah, it was a good time.
That's it. What's your favorite show you've ever played? Do you have any like really cool stories or any funny stories maybe you could share with us?
I did my first tour last fall, and I opened up for Drulu, and
Oh, really?
that entire tour was super, super fun. We played a venue called the Showbox in Seattle, and that was like my favorite show just because like I had friends that like flew into town for the show, and I have a ton of friends that live in Seattle as well. So that like felt like a really special moment, just getting to like have all of these like the show was packed, the energy was super good. And just seeing like all of the seeing all my friends and stuff there, like having an awesome time. That was probably my favorite show that I've done.
That's sick. And in a demo tape show, because I haven't seen one in person, but like, what's your favorite thing about your show in terms of the experience that you're offering to people?
I have like a million edits. Like I love that kind of like pocket of just like fun, like early 2000s, like pop, like those songs, like early 2000s, like hit songs, because the vocal production's so incredible on them. And it's really fun to like take those and like reimagine them as like
Mm. Mm.
weird, like 130, 135 BPM, like dance like tracks. And
Yes,
so I think that I love doing that. And like, especially since a lot of the shows that I'm doing are like opening for other artists, you're kind of like introducing your music to people for the first time. So that's like the
that's
fun
beautiful.
thing about demo tapes shows, I think, is like just like all these edits. And I think also there's like an expectation in like club stuff right now of like going harder and harder, like bigger and bigger drops and stuff like that. And that's just not like my music or like who I am as a producer. Like I make like softer, like cuter, I guess, like kind of like stuff. Like it's not like, oh, the stuff to rage to, but it's more like I think, or I hope it's like more introspective and like kind of a little bit of a different like set for people. So yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
love
been
that.
super fun playing a show.
And I love Drulu as well. Like I totally, yeah, can picture that, that the audience, just are looking for not always those tracks that are just, hardcore, bangers, but something that, you get, as you're saying, taking those pop vocals and reappropriating them, giving people a sense of beautiful escapism, but in a dance way. Just sounds like a cup of tea. I love it.
Yeah.
And we get like all this alpha in your shows, which I absolutely love. All these edits and unreleased things. And speaking of unreleased songs, apparently you have another really dope one here to share with us today on Behind the Beats. Do you want to tell us more about that?
I have a ton of music that I'm working on right now. And
Yeah.
there's this producer who is an Aussie, and his name is Nukes, and he's like a sample maker as well. And he does
Okay.
these sample packs with this vocalist called Lola Scott, and they are basically just like they will write a demo on guitar, really like slow and simple demo with a
Mm.
vocal, and then they send out those packs to producers. So Focus
Okay.
is like taking her vocal, stripping the like guitar from it, and just working with that a cappella and trying to build like the what I think the world should be like around that song. So this one was super
Wow.
fun because it's like working. It's like again, I make samples. The whole ethos of like the music that I'm working on right now is like taking a sample and like reimagining or like chopping that up and creating a new world around it. And so that's kind of how this one started.
That's so sick. Oh my god, I'm excited. So without further ado, I think we should play it.
Sweet.
I can't focus on anyone but you. Do you even notice anything that I do? I can't focus on
that was such a jam. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
And so, how long did that take you to make the song?
That was another pretty quick. The two unreleased songs that we're talking about today are like both just kind of 1 day ish demos. So yeah,
Wow.
I still have like they're rough. Like I still have stuff I want to do with them to like so that they feel finished to me. But that was like about a day or two of work. So
That's insane because they sound to me they sound like ready to go, ready to be released to the world. But thank you so much again for sharing all this amazing unreleased alpha with us because we really get an insight into what's coming up next for you and get really excited to hear all these really amazing tunes. So
of
yeah,
course,
thank you
yeah,
again.
yeah. Thank you
So
guys.
look, how we kind of like then wrap up the show is we then talk about some advice, to give back to the audience community, in terms of getting their start as an artist, in terms of creating music, the business side of things, performing, releasing on labels. What advice do you have? We call it like the wisdom golden nuggets for our audience community here today.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say two things. One is uh, the paradigm that we're in right now, where again, like a lot of music discovery has shifted over to these visual mediums like TikTok and Instagram. Um, I don't see that paradigm going away anytime soon. So I think if you are a musician right now, try to focus on storytelling through visuals, and that doesn't it doesn't have to take away all of your time from music, but you should be if you want people to discover your music and if the goal of your project is for to have as many people listening as possible, I would say invest a lot of time in thinking about how to present your art in a visual way. That's like kind of the approach that I'm taking, and that's what I would suggest to other people. So yeah, focus on making visual stuff that feels like an extension of your art, and the music that you're making. That's number one. Piece of advice number two, I would say, um, especially if you're early on in your career, find a group of people online who are kind of at a similar place to you and are maybe making similar music, maybe making different music from you. But the internet can be very lonely. The music industry can like be a cold and like lonely place at times and can be discouraging. So like having a friend group that you're making music with and starting out in kind of a similar place, like um is, I think, like the most important thing to keep you sane, to keep you motivated, to inspire each other. Like work on that, and it'll take time to do. But yeah, do the work to find pockets of people, and there's people everywhere. Like the Bitbird Discord is like an amazing place to find people. Um, TikTok and
100%.
Instagram are like great places to find people, and not everyone is going to be like receptive or willing to like be your best friend or whatever, but like I think you should invest in other people and relationships to help like you navigate
Mm.
the music industry, I think.
I love that phrase you said, pockets of the internet. The internet's not meant
Yeah,
to be homogenized or just one certain group of people, one place to go. It's all these micro communities, and that's really good advice. So thank you so much. It's very inspiring. I find you inspiring, and we're really excited to see all these unreleased tunes be released and what's coming up next for you.
awesome. Thank you so much, Sam. This was wonderful.
Totally. Thank you so much, Parker, aka Demo Tapes, for joining Audiences Behind the Beats. That's a wrap for Audiences Behind the Beats. We'll be dropping the social handles and links for demo tapes in the comments and description. Until next time, keep vibing, keep thriving, and keep creating. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one. Behind the Beats is a production of Audius Music. This episode was hosted by me, Sam McFly, with editing by Julian Blythe and production assistance from Sierra Graves. Our executive producers are Julian Baker and Michael Cullen. Theme music by Caption.